The Academy's training hall was vast, a chamber built with silver arches that touched the ceiling like the ribs of a giant beast. Light from distant stars poured in through tall glass windows, making the floor shine like water. Hundreds of alien cadets filled the room, each wearing the mark of their world. Scaled warriors from the deserts, winged fighters from high-gravity planets, tall beings whose eyes glowed like embers. Their voices merged into one echo, a mix of pride and arrogance. At the center of the hall stood the senior instructor, an old commander with skin like polished stone and eyes that saw too much. He raised his hand, and the voices faded into silence. His words came sharp, striking every ear like a hammer. "Cadets," he said, his tone carrying the weight of final truth. "There is one world no warrior here could ever survive. No training would prepare you, no strength would save you. That world is Earth." The name alone sent ripples through the crowd. Whispers began, some fearful, some mocking. Earth, the cursed planet, the unpredictable wilderness, the home of storms that split mountains, of oceans that swallowed armies, of predators that hunted without mercy. It was a name spoken like a warning, never as a place of pride. The commander let the silence grow before continuing. "On every world there are tests, but Earth is chaos itself. Its skies are wild, its ground unstable, its creatures endless in hunger. To set foot there is to die." Laughter broke out across the hall. A reptilian cadet hissed in amusement, baring sharp teeth. "Fragile humans," he muttered, shaking his head. Another cadet from an icy world chuckled, her voice cold as frost. "They burn in their own storms. How can they claim to be warriors?" The commander allowed the laughter, his lips curving slightly, as though he enjoyed their arrogance. "Remember this," he said, raising his voice again. "No cadet, no being in this room, could ever walk the surface of Earth and return alive." The hall filled with cheers, a celebration of their own strength against the weakness of a world none of them respected. But not every voice joined in. At the edge of the hall, sitting quietly among the rows, was a single figure who did not laugh. She was smaller than the rest, her frame not armored with scales or covered with glowing skin. She wore the same academy uniform, but it seemed looser on her, almost out of place. Her face was calm, her eyes steady, and though her body looked fragile, her presence carried something none of the others could name. She was human. For weeks she had endured their whispers. She had heard the jokes at her expense, the doubts, the laughter. They called her fragile, unfit, lucky to even be breathing. She had let it all pass over her like rain, never answering, never defending. But the words spoken today cut deeper than all the whispers combined. No cadet could survive Earth. Her hands clenched under the desk. She felt the silence inside herself break like glass. Slowly, deliberately, she raised her hand. The movement seemed louder than the crowd's noise. The hall stilled, voices faltering, eyes turning toward her. Some smirked, waiting to hear something foolish. Others leaned forward, curiosity sharp. Even the commander's eyes narrowed, surprise flickering in their depth. She rose to her feet, her uniform brushing against the edge of her chair. Her voice was not loud, but it was steady, cutting through the hall's silence like a blade. "Then how?" she said, her eyes sweeping across the rows of cadets. "Am I standing here?" The words struck the hall like thunder. Gasps spread. A murmur rose, growing louder with every heartbeat. "She cannot mean. She lies. Impossible." The reptilian cadet hissed in disbelief, his tail lashing against the floor. The winged student frowned, folding his wings close, as if the air itself had shifted. The icy warrior's cold eyes narrowed, searching the girl's face for weakness. But she did not look away. She met their stares with calm defiance. She did not flinch under their whispers or their scorn. Her question lingered, heavier than the commander's declaration. The old instructor's lips curved into a thin smile. He stepped closer, studying her like one might study a dangerous puzzle. "Bold words," he said softly. "You claim survival? On that world?" His laugh followed, but it was thinner than before. Perhaps you stumbled through by accident. Perhaps luck carried you where strength could not. The cadets laughed again, though the sound no longer held the same certainty. There was something different now, a shift in the air. The doubt was planted, and it grew in every corner of the room. The girl did not answer the commander. She did not argue with the cadets. She simply sat back down, her calm presence speaking louder than any defense. Her silence was heavier than noise, and her question echoed in every ear. If no one could survive Earth, then how was she standing there, alive, unbroken, and unafraid? For the first time in the Academy's history, the certainty cracked. The legend of Earth was no longer untouchable. The cadets stared at her not with laughter, but with unease. Some felt a seed of respect they could not admit. Others felt a chill in their chest they could not explain. The commander stood tall, but even he could not shake the truth in her words. His authority was still there, but his certainty was gone. The human girl had spoken once, and that was enough. The doubt had begun. The words still lingered in the air like smoke that refused to fade. Then how am I standing here? That single question had turned the proud voices of the Academy into whispers of doubt. The hall did not return to order after she sat down. The cadets shifted in their seats, their wings rustling, their tails flicking, their glowing eyes darting toward her. Some sneered, others whispered sharply to their neighbors, and a few simply stared in silence, unsettled by what they had just witnessed. The reptilian cadet slammed his clawed hand against the desk. "She lies," he hissed, his teeth flashing. "A fragile human could never survive Earth. She must have been rescued, carried by ships before the planet consumed her." His voice carried enough venom to stir nods of agreement from his friends. Another cadet, tall and sharp-eyed from a desert world, leaned back and folded his arms. "If she truly lived there," he said slowly, "then where are the scars? Where is the proof?" No human could stand calm after such a place. Their skepticism spread like fire. The winged cadets whispered that she was exaggerating. The icy warriors muttered that she was trained to lie. The laughter returned, but it was no longer filled with certainty. It was the laughter of beings trying to push away their own unease. The commander raised his hand, silencing them. His eyes, sharp as blades, turned toward the girl. "Stand again," he commanded. She obeyed without hesitation, her movements calm, her expression unchanged. She did not appear angry. She did not appear shaken. That calmness alone unsettled the crowd. "Tell me," the commander said, his voice measured, "if you truly survived Earth, then explain. How did you endure storms that tear mountains apart? How did you escape oceans filled with predators? How did you walk lands where the ground itself shifts and kills?" The hall fell silent, all eyes locked on her. She lifted her chin slightly, her voice steady and simple. "Because I was born there. I grew up there. What you call death, I called home." Gasps spread across the room. Some cadets laughed nervously. Others frowned. Confusion etched across their alien features. The reptilian cadet snarled. "Impossible! No youngling survives Earth. Not even their elders last long." The girl's calm gaze swept across the hall. "Then explain me," she said softly. "Explain why I am here." Her words struck deeper than before. The silence after them was heavy, almost suffocating. The icy cadet broke it with a sharp voice. She could be lying. Perhaps she was taken from Earth as an infant, before it swallowed her. Perhaps she never endured what she claims. The desert-born cadet smirked. Yes, perhaps she hides behind stories. If she truly lived there, let her prove it. A murmur of agreement rose. Proof. Evidence. They demanded it not because they truly believed she lied, but because believing her threatened everything they had been told. Earth was the forbidden place, the cursed world. If a human cadet stood alive before them, then everything they had been taught was shaken. The commander raised his hand again, and the murmurs stopped. His eyes locked on the girl with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. For the first time, his voice carried less certainty. "You say Earth was your home," he said slowly. Then perhaps we should see this truth for ourselves. Perhaps words are not enough. Whispers rippled across the hall. Some cadets grinned, eager to see her fail. Others shifted nervously, unsure if they wanted to witness what came next. The girl did not flinch. She nodded once, her calm voice carrying across the silence. "If you want proof, I will give it." The commander studied her for a long moment, his gaze unreadable. Then, with a sharp gesture, he ended the assembly. "Cadets dismissed. Tomorrow we will see if this human's words carry truth, or if they are nothing but air." The hall erupted into noise. Some cadets shouted with excitement, others muttered with doubt, and a few remained silent, unsettled by the calm strength they had seen. Groups formed instantly, arguments spilling into every corner. Some swore she was lying. Others whispered that perhaps, just perhaps, Earth had given rise to something none of them understood. The girl walked quietly toward the exit, her head held high, ignoring the stares that followed her. She did not argue with those who mocked her. She did not answer those who called her a liar. She simply walked, her silence more powerful than any defense. Behind her, the commander's eyes remained fixed on her back. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Uncertainty. Could it be true? Could this fragile-looking human truly have endured the chaos of Earth? The doubt had grown roots, and the seeds of skepticism had been planted deep. Tomorrow, the Academy would demand proof, and she would either shatter under their challenge or shatter their beliefs forever. The next morning, the Academy was buzzing like a nest of restless creatures. Every corridor echoed with talk of the human cadet. Her words had spread beyond the hall, reaching instructors, guards, even the kitchens where workers whispered in disbelief. Some said she was mad. Others said she was lying. But all of them agreed on one thing: today would decide the truth. The commander had ordered a trial. Not just any trial, but the kind reserved for final graduation exams, where cadets were tested against simulations of their homeworlds. Only this time, the trial would not be based on her world as they imagined it. It would be Earth itself. The arena was prepared. It was a vast dome of shifting landscapes, powered by advanced machines that could recreate storms, oceans, deserts, and forests. No cadet had ever stepped into it alone. Usually, teams entered together, helping one another survive. But today, the human girl would enter by herself. The cadets filled the viewing platforms, their voices rising with anticipation. Some cheered, eager to see her fail. Others whispered nervously, unsure if they wanted to witness her collapse. The reptilian cadet leaned against the railing, his eyes gleaming with hunger for her downfall. "She will not last an hour," he hissed. The icy cadet folded her arms, her voice sharp. "If she truly endured Earth, she will prove it. If not, she will break." The commander stood above them all, his arms clasped behind his back. His face was unreadable, but his eyes remained fixed on the human below. She stepped into the arena quietly, her uniform simple, her movements calm. She did not carry weapons or armor, only her training gear. The massive gates closed behind her with a sound like thunder, sealing her inside. A moment later, the arena came alive. The ground beneath her feet cracked, shifting into jagged rocks. The air grew thick, clouds swirling overhead. A storm built in seconds, lightning flashing, wind howling. The cadets above gasped. Even in simulation, the chaos felt real. The girl did not flinch. She crouched low as the wind pulled at her hair, her eyes scanning the shifting ground. She moved carefully, balancing with every step, as though she had walked storms like this 1,000 times before. The commander's voice echoed through the hall. "This is the first test, the storm. Can she endure it?" The wind roared louder, knocking smaller rocks from the cliffs. A bolt of lightning struck dangerously close, splitting stone into shards. The reptilian cadet laughed. "She will be crushed." But she pressed forward. She found shelter beneath an overhang, waiting as the worst of the wind tore past. She timed her movements with the rhythm of the storm, never rushing, never panicking. Slowly, step by step, She advanced through the chaos until the clouds finally broke. Gasps spread through the viewing platforms. She had passed the first test. But the arena was not finished. The ground rumbled and split apart, revealing a wide river rushing with dark water. Shapes moved beneath the surface, large and fast. The cadets leaned forward, recognizing the predators that lurked below. The commander's voice was steady. The second test, the waters. The girl stood at the edge, watching the current twist and pull. For a moment, she closed her eyes. Then, without hesitation, she leapt into the water. The river swallowed her instantly, dragging her downstream. The cadets gasped, some shouting in disbelief. The reptilian cadet grinned, certain she would not surface again. But she did. Her arms cut through the water with steady strokes, her body moving with the current instead of fighting it. When shadows rose beneath her, jaws opening wide, she twisted sharply, kicking hard to push herself sideways. She reached for a broken log drifting by and clung to it, using it to carry herself further downstream, outpacing the predators. Moments later, she pulled herself onto the far bank, dripping but alive. The hall erupted with noise. Some cadets shouted in awe, others in disbelief. The reptilian slammed his fist against the railing, furious. The icy cadet whispered softly, almost to herself. She knew how to move, like someone who had done it before. The commander's eyes narrowed, his face still unreadable, but inside, a spark of respect began to grow. The arena shifted again. The water dried into cracked desert earth. The air shimmered with heat, the ground burning under her feet. The sun blazed overhead, and the horizon stretched endlessly. The third test, the commander declared, the wastelands. The girl began to walk. Each step left dust rising around her ankles. The heat pressed down like a heavy weight, but she did not slow. She moved with purpose, conserving energy, her eyes always searching for shade, for water, for signs of life. She spotted a cluster of rocks and angled toward them, resting briefly in their shadow before continuing. Hours passed. The cadets grew restless. She cannot last forever, one muttered. But still she pressed forward. Her pace never faltered. By the time the sun finally dipped low, painting the sky with fire, she still stood strong. Her hair clung to her face, sweat dripping down, but her eyes burned with quiet determination. The commander raised his hand, signaling the end of the trial for the day. The arena fell silent as the simulation shut down, leaving her standing on bare stone. She lifted her head toward the viewing platform, meeting their stares with calm defiance. For the first time, no one laughed. No one mocked. Instead, silence filled the hall, heavy with something new. Respect, mixed with fear. The human cadet had not just survived. She had endured. And tomorrow, the trials would grow even harder. The second day of the trial arrived, and the academy felt different. The corridors were quieter, the whispers sharper. No one laughed openly anymore. Some cadets still mocked her in hushed tones, but there was unease in their voices now. They had seen her face the storm, the river, and the wasteland. She had not broken. By the time the cadets filled the viewing platforms again, the air inside the dome seemed heavier. Even the reptilian cadet who had been loudest in his insults leaned against the railing with a restless glare. The icy warrior kept her arms folded, though her sharp eyes never left the girl. The commander stepped forward, his cloak trailing behind him, and raised his hand. Yesterday, the human endured the first trials. Today, the arena will not test only her body. It will test her mind, her instincts, and her will to live. Let the struggle begin. The floor of the dome rumbled, shifting and cracking as the simulation came alive once more. This time, the ground rose into thick forests, trees stretching high into the artificial sky. Their branches twisted, casting shadows that moved like living things. The air grew damp, heavy with the smell of soil and the buzz of unseen creatures. The girl stood at the edge of the forest, her posture calm but alert. She knew what was coming. Earth's forests had been no different, alive with beauty, yet filled with hidden dangers. She stepped inside. From the start, the forest pressed against her. The ground was uneven, roots snaking across her path. Strange calls echoed through the trees, some high-pitched, others low and threatening. She paused often, listening, scanning, adjusting her path. Every step was measured. High above, the cadets watched with narrowed eyes. "She looks afraid," one whispered. "She will falter soon." But fear did not control her. Fear sharpened her senses. Minutes passed, then an hour. Suddenly, the forest came alive with movement. Shadows darted between the trees. Yellow eyes glowed in the dark. A pack of simulated predators burst from the undergrowth, sleek, fast, with jaws lined in jagged teeth. Gasps erupted from the cadets above. The girl did not run blindly. She darted between trees, forcing the predators to break their charge. When one lunged, she rolled to the side, snatching a branch from the ground and driving it forward to block its jaws. Another leapt from behind, and she twisted, shoving herself flat against the earth just as claws swiped above her head. Her breaths came fast, her hair clinging to her face, but her eyes burned with focus. She fought not with brute strength, but with instinct born from survival. She knew when to strike, when to dodge, when to vanish into shadows. One by one, the predators fell behind, confused, unable to catch her. The cadets leaned forward in disbelief. "She is fighting them without weapons. She is surviving," the icy warrior whispered softly. Still, the forest did not release her. Hours stretched on, exhaustion pulling at her limbs. The predators faded, but the challenges continued. Swarms of biting insects, sudden floods sweeping through the trees, poisonous plants releasing choking gas. Each test forced her to think, to adapt, to endure. There were moments when her strength faltered. Once, she stumbled, falling hard onto the roots. Her chest heaved, sweat dripping, her hands trembling. From above, the reptilian cadet sneered, "Now she breaks." But she did not stay down. She pushed herself up slowly, steadying her breath. Her eyes lifted, calm and unshaken. Then she moved forward again. It was not a single moment of triumph that defined her, but the endless struggle, the refusal to stop, the refusal to surrender. The forest finally cleared into an open field, but the ground here was treacherous. The earth shifted under her feet like a trap. She paused, scanning the terrain. Ahead, a cadet from a desert world had stepped into the simulation by mistake, sent as part of the observer team, but caught when the terrain shifted. He stumbled into a hollow, the ground giving way beneath him. The crowd gasped. The cadet cried out, trapped as the soil closed around him like quicksand. Without hesitation, the human girl sprinted forward. Her body ached, her muscles screamed, but she moved with speed born of instinct. She grabbed a fallen vine, anchored it around a tree, and threw the other end toward him. "Hold on," she shouted. The desert cadet's eyes widened in shock, but he obeyed. With all her remaining strength, she pulled, her teeth clenched, her body straining. Slowly, painfully, the cadet was dragged free from the earth's grip. Above, the viewing platforms had fallen silent. The cadets stared in disbelief. She was not only surviving, she was saving others, even those who had mocked her. The commander's sharp gaze softened, just for a moment. When the simulation ended, the girl stood tall, dirt covering her clothes, scratches lining her arms, but her head high. She looked up at the cadets, meeting their eyes one by one. For the first time, many of them could not meet her gaze. The struggle had not broken her. It had revealed her. The arena was quiet after the forest trial. For hours the cadets spoke in low voices, trying to explain what they had seen. Many still refused to believe it. Others were beginning to doubt their own certainty. And some, though they would not admit it aloud, had started to feel respect for the human girl. But the trial was not yet over. On the third day, the commander announced that the next challenge would be the most dangerous yet. It was not only about storms, deserts, or forests. It was about awareness, instinct, and survival when death could come from anywhere. The dome's lights dimmed. A low rumble shook the floor. The simulation shifted into a landscape of jagged cliffs and narrow valleys, where mist clung to the air and shadows danced on every rock. It was a place designed to confuse and to trap, to turn strength into weakness. The cadets leaned forward from the viewing platforms. Some whispered that this would finally end her run. Others stayed silent, remembering the way she had pulled the desert cadet from the ground. The girl stepped into the mist without hesitation. Her face was calm, her movements slow and careful. She touched the rocks as she walked, feeling the texture, marking her path in her memory. From above, the reptilian cadet smirked. She looks lost already. But as the girl moved deeper, it became clear she was not lost. She was listening. Her ears caught the faintest sounds. Her eyes tracked the smallest movements in the fog. She crouched low, waiting. The first threat came silently. A predator shaped like a shadow, its body blending with the mist. It leapt from the rocks with claws stretched wide. The cadets gasped, but the girl had already moved. She dropped flat, rolled sideways, and grabbed a loose stone from the ground. As the beast lunged past her, she slammed the stone against its side, forcing it off balance. She didn't stay to fight. She slipped back into the fog, vanishing before the creature could recover. The cadets above fell silent. They realized she was not wasting her energy in battles she didn't need. She was choosing her fights. She was surviving the way predators did, by knowing when to strike and when to disappear. Hours passed. More threats came. Collapsing cliffs, swarms of venomous insects, ambushes from creatures hiding in the mist. Each time she adapted. She climbed instead of running. She used the rocks as cover. She even smeared mud across her skin to hide her scent from predators. The icy cadet, who had mocked her before, spoke softly now. She does not fight like us. She fights like the planet itself taught her. But then came the true test. In the middle of the simulation, a group of cadets were sent in as observers. The mist shifted, and one of them, a winged cadet, wandered too close to a cliff's edge. The ground cracked beneath his feet. He cried out as the cliff gave way. His wings tangled in the fog, useless. The crowd shouted in alarm. The commander moved as if to end the trial early. But before he could act, the human girl was already there. She sprinted across the uneven ground, her legs burning, her breath sharp. She leapt forward, catching the cadet's arm just as he slipped. The weight nearly pulled her down with him. Her hands scraped against the rocks, blood running across her skin. For a moment the arena froze. The winged cadet dangled over the abyss, and she alone kept him from falling. The reptilian cadet shouted, "Let him go! He is your rival." But she did not listen. Her teeth clenched, her muscles trembling. She pulled with everything she had. Inch by inch, she dragged the cadet back up to solid ground. When he collapsed beside her, gasping, she said nothing. She simply nodded once and stood again, ready to continue. Above, the hall was utterly silent. Not a single cadet laughed now. Not a single voice mocked her. They had seen the truth with their own eyes. She was not only surviving for herself, she was protecting others. The commander's gaze followed her every move. His stern face did not change, but inside, something shifted. He had trained warriors for decades, seen bravery and strength in many forms. But this human girl was different. She carried the fire of a world no one else understood. When the simulation finally ended, she emerged from the mist scratched, bruised, and bleeding, but standing tall. Her eyes lifted to the cadets above, meeting their stares without fear. And for the first time since the trial began, the cadets did not look at her as weak or fragile. They looked at her with something far stronger, respect mixed with awe. The turning point had come. She was no longer just a human girl in their eyes. She was proof that Earth did not create weakness. Earth created survivors. The arena was quiet when the mist finally faded. The girl stood in the center, her uniform torn, her arms covered in scratches, her hands streaked with dirt and blood. Yet her head was high and her steps steady. She did not look like someone defeated. She looked like someone carved from the struggle itself. Around her, the cadets whispered, their voices low, heavy with awe. The reptilian cadet, once so eager to mock her, now said nothing. His sharp teeth stayed hidden behind tight lips. The icy cadet, who had doubted her from the beginning, stared at her in silence, her cold eyes unsettled for the first time. Even the winged cadet she had pulled from the cliff could not look away. The commander descended from his platform. His cloak swept the floor as he walked into the arena. Every eye followed him. The cadets leaned forward, sensing something important. He stopped in front of her. For a long moment he simply studied her face. His sharp gaze, which had broken so many cadets before, could not pierce her calm. Finally, his deep voice filled the chamber. You have survived storms, rivers, deserts, and predators. You have endured exhaustion, fear, and pain. You even saved those who doubted you. But tell me this, what makes you different? Why can you endure what others cannot? The hall went silent. Every cadet held their breath, waiting for her reply. She looked at the commander, then at the rows of cadets staring down at her. Her voice was calm, steady, but carried weight that no one could ignore. On Earth, survival is not a lesson, she said. It is life itself. Every day we wake up knowing the world will test us. The storms don't wait for us to be ready. The predators don't give warnings. The ground shifts when we least expect it. To live on Earth is to adapt, to fight, and to endure every moment, every breath. That is why I can stand here now. Because Earth does not allow weakness. It forces us to become strong. Her words echoed across the arena, sinking into every ear. The reptilian cadet muttered under his breath, but even he could not hide the doubt in his voice. Every breath? Survival? The icy cadet whispered. That is why she moves like she does. Not like a warrior trained in drills, but like someone who has lived danger since birth. The winged cadet, still shaken from his rescue, spoke louder. She is not lying. She saved me when I was already gone. She knew how to fight the cliff, the air, the weight. She knew because she has lived it before. One by one, the cadets who had mocked her began to fall silent. Their whispers faded, replaced by something new, understanding. The commander's stern face remained still, but his eyes burned with something rare. Respect. He gave a slow nod, his deep voice carrying across the chamber. Perhaps we were wrong. He turned, his words directed at the cadets. Perhaps Earth is not a cursed world. Perhaps it is the crucible that forges something greater than we can imagine. The hall erupted, not with laughter or mockery, but with gasps, murmurs, and even applause. Some cadets pounded their fists against the railings, not in anger but in respect. Others bowed their heads, acknowledging the truth they had seen with their own eyes. The girl did not smile. She did not bask in their praise. She simply stood quietly, her gaze steady, as if this moment was not a victory but a simple truth finally spoken aloud. The commander stepped closer, lowering his voice so that only she could hear. You carry Earth within you. That is why you cannot be broken. She met his eyes. I carry Earth, yes, but I am not the only one. Humanity is full of survivors. One day you will see. He stared at her for a long time before nodding again. Then he turned to the cadets and raised his hand. This trial is over. Remember what you have witnessed here. Remember the human who stood where no one else could. Let this day mark the truth, that strength does not always come from armor or size or weapons. Sometimes, strength is simply surviving where others cannot. The cadets roared not with scorn, but with recognition. The girl had changed something inside them. Their laughter at Earth was gone, replaced with awe for the world that had created her. As she walked out of the arena, silence followed her. Not the silence of disbelief, but the silence of respect. The revelation had come. They no longer looked at her as fragile. They no longer looked at Earth as weak. They looked at her as proof. Proof that Earth, feared and mocked, was the birthplace of survivors stronger than any academy could imagine. The trial was over, but the echoes of it spread through the academy like fire across dry grass. What had started as laughter at a fragile human ended in silence, respect, and awe. The cadets carried the memory of every storm she had endured, every predator she had outsmarted, and the lives she had saved inside the simulation. For many of them, it was the first time they had questioned what true strength meant. That night, the dormitories were not filled with mockery. Instead, they were filled with whispers of her name, repeated in disbelief. She survived the storm. She swam through the river and lived. She pulled him from the cliff. For every cadet who doubted, another defended. The arguments no longer sounded like scorn. They sounded like the beginning of belief. Instructors who had once dismissed her as a curiosity now studied her with new eyes. They watched her movements in training sessions, noticing how she reacted faster than most, how she adapted before anyone else thought to. They began writing quiet notes, comparing her instincts to those of seasoned warriors. Even the commander, whose authority was rarely questioned, found himself thinking of her words again and again. On Earth, survival is not a lesson, it is life itself. He had trained warriors from countless worlds, but never had he seen someone who carried struggle as naturally as breathing. The next morning, when the cadets gathered in the Great Hall, something had changed. The human girl entered quietly, as always, but this time no one laughed. No one whispered insults. Instead, the rows of cadets turned to watch her pass, their eyes carrying respect. Some even nodded at her. The silence that followed her was not scorn, it was honor. She took her seat without a word. She had not come for glory, nor for recognition. She had come to learn, to train, to grow stronger. Yet the academy now looked at her as more than a student. She had become a symbol. Later that week, the commander called an assembly. The cadets filled the hall, buzzing with anticipation. When the commander stepped forward, the room fell silent. His voice was strong, carrying to every corner. "Cadets," he said, "you have witnessed something no one in this academy believed possible. A human has endured trials meant to break the strongest among you. She did not only survive. She adapted, she endured, and she saved her fellow cadets. Let this be remembered. Let it be written into our records. From this day forward, Earth will no longer be spoken of as a cursed world. It will be known as the world that forges survivors." The hall erupted, not with jeers but with applause. Cadets of every species struck the tables, stomped their feet, and raised their voices. For the first time, they were not mocking her, they were honoring her. The girl stood slowly. She did not bow, nor smile. She simply raised her chin and spoke softly, her voice cutting through the noise. "Do not honor me," she said. "Honor the truth. I am only one human. There are billions like me. If you ever doubt Earth again, remember that it is not me you should fear. It is the spirit of every human who has lived through its storms." Her words settled deep in their hearts. The applause grew louder, not out of pity or shock, but out of recognition. They finally understood. From that day, everything changed. Cadets began approaching her with questions, asking about her world, about how humans lived. Some asked her to train with them, hoping to learn her instincts. Others simply watched, trying to understand what made her different. Slowly, the academy's culture shifted. No longer did they mock Earth. They studied it. They whispered about it with awe. Some cadets even began to say, half in jest and half in fear, "If a war ever comes, pray the humans do not stand against us." The commander, in private, spoke to the other instructors. "This girl is not just a cadet. She is a message. If one human child can endure this, then humanity may be the strongest force we have yet to see." And so the legend grew. Years later, long after she graduated, cadets would still speak of the day a fragile human raised her hand in defiance. They would recall the silence that fell after her words. "Then how am I standing here?" And they would remember the trials, the storms, the predators, and the moment the academy changed forever. Her name became more than a name. It became a symbol of survival, of resilience, of quiet strength. The human girl who was once mocked as weak left behind a legacy that no one could erase. And somewhere, far away, Earth continued to spin beneath its storms and wild skies, shaping more survivors who would one day rise and remind the galaxy. Humanity does not break. Humanity endures.